Justice Barrett?
Two questions, one on merits, one on standing. First, on the merits, do you agree that this administration and the prior administration had authorization under the HEROES Act to pause loan repayment obligations?
Your Honor, we're not challenging it in this case.
I know, but the question is, do you think it's within it? This kind of goes to the scope of waiver modify, right?
Yes, I think that so if I can go through the timeline to explain. So the first 7 days on March 20th, 2020, Secretary DeVos waived but didn't indicate what legal authority she was using. I have no way to assess that because I just don't know what authority she was using. Then Congress came in 7 days later and enacted the CARES Act. The CARES Act put a payment pause in place for 6 months. At the end of that 6-month period, Secretary DeVos extended it for 3 months. I think arguably that was a legitimate use of the HEROES Act because taking a congressionally created 6-month program and extending it for 3 months seems like it might be a modification. But now that we're 2 years down the road, we're beyond a modification. And not only that, the connection to the national emergency has become even more tenuous.
So your argument is that even assuming that Secretary DeVos initially had the authority to, and you're kind of just whiffing on the question about before the CARES Act was passed, right? But you're talking about after the CARES Act was passed, she arguably had authority under the HEROES Act to extend the pause, but that at some point as that time dragged on post the CARES Act, when the new administration came in, then it exceeded the authority to waive or modify?
Your Honor, it could have been the Secretary DeVos had 2 extensions. It could have been her second extension. I don't think it hinges on who the administration was. At some point, I think it goes beyond a modification and the connection to the national emergency became too tenuous to maintain it.
So it's not that a pause is different in your mind than canceling the obligation to repay the principal. It's the, or I guess it's a combination of the distinction between a pause and a cancellation and then the temporal
Correct.
breach?
Correct. Because I do think there are significant distinctions between a pause and cancellation. I'll give you a few. The first is a pause maintains the status quo. Cancellation puts people in a far better. This cancellation puts people in a far better position. A pause keeps indebtedness from rising versus cancellation erases indebtedness. In addition, as I mentioned before, the connection to the national emergency. When you put a pause in place, when the nation is still dealing with lockdown conditions, that is there's a pretty close connection between that and a national emergency. When 2.5 years down the road, the Secretary, having much time to contemplate the situation, comes in and creates a debt forgiveness program for 95% of borrowers, the connection to the national emergency is too tenuous.
I understand. Second question's on standing. Could Missouri file suit to vindicate the interests of the city of St. Louis?
No, Your Honor, because when we look at the factors that we've cited for why MOHELA is a state-created and state-controlled entity, the leadership of the city of Missouri is not selected by the governor or by the state. They're selected at the local level.
Thank you.